Mini episode 1727 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.com.
The FDH Lounge. You want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to FDH Lounge mini episode 1727. This is FDH Managing Partner Rick Morris coming at you with one of our favorite FDH Lounge dignitaries, Ben Chu. Normally we have him on to talk basketball or the streaming world, and today we're going to be doing it somewhat under the course of the latter, but it's the merger of streaming and the NFL. We've had this great little streaming mini-series we've been doing on the show the last couple of years because Ben and I are both real nerds about the streaming business and how it's growing. We're very fascinated by the business of it. I think we've made some very accurate predictions, if I may say so, over the course of the last couple of years on how it's been evolving. And there was another monster leap forward this week with Netflix getting the two NFL Christmas Day games that it got, a brand new package being carved out. It is going to be in the early game, Kansas City at Pittsburgh, and then in the late game, Baltimore at Houston. And we had that one rated, by the way, on our Pro Football Draftology 2024, our NFL draft guide here this year. We had Baltimore at Houston as the number 29 game of the season. Kansas City at Pittsburgh did not make our top 50, but this is one of these things where, in terms of, from a football fan's perspective, I would honestly believe it doesn't make the top 50, but from a TV perspective, I can see where it does, because Pittsburgh is one of these at least quasi-national brands, Kansas City, two-time defending champions. So Ben and I had been wondering off here about if the league was going to be really giving them their money's worth or not, and I think Baltimore at Houston might have even been one of the games we speculated about off air, and lo and behold, that is one of the games. So going to reach out and make the hot tag to my great friend Ben Chu to talk about this subject here. So this kind of came out of nowhere, Ben, in the last 2 weeks or so about Netflix getting these games here, and I think getting it locked in is why it took longer to get the schedule out, because apparently there were still I's to be dotted, T's to be crossed last week, but they did it. And Netflix, apparently, one of their executives was quoted as saying that each of the games cost them what a medium-priced movie would cost to get made on the service, so you got to think they're coming out ahead.
Right, and I think one of the big things, and we've speculated this for a while, Rick, that they were going to get into the live sports package after doing some of their recent live sports promotions. And obviously, the WWE was the big thing first, but I think I think, and I don't want to make this a thing, but we also know that the WWE is more entertainment than sports, but more along the lines, like, we kind of knew that the NFL was going to try to fragment their package out schedule-wise. And it feels like to me, as we have discussed, like Netflix CEO Reed Hastings has mentioned multiple times, that they don't want to be a big-time sports streamer, but they almost feel like to me that they want to be very calculating with their moves. They're more in the making money business more than in trying to build their own sports department out.
Sure, and this is where it really does kind of fit the bill of splitting the difference here, because now they're into the NFL, but it's for one day a year, albeit one of the highest profile days of the year on the calendar for the NFL. And now comes the question of what they're going to do in terms of building out a staff for their one day a year. And for as much as I've joked over the years on and off about NBC Sports using the Kelly temp service to fill out the Olympic coverage every 2 years, because they're bringing on essentially temps from other networks to fill out some of their spots calling the sports here, particularly for the sports that they don't carry. That's a deal where you're going to be looking at potentially some of the same here. Maybe they do that, or maybe there's guys that they get that just come in for the 2 games a year in the pregame and everything that goes with it, and brand it themselves as, Netflix Sports, and really kind of, I would kind of think, if they're putting this kind of money into it, they're probably going to want their own slant on it. Yeah, you can get Rich Eisen to call your games. You can use the NFL Network guys, but you also could get guys who are just going to be there to do this every year for Netflix on these occasions here. It's a 3-year deal where Netflix is going to be getting to cover the NFL on Christmas. Really, really funny that Boomer Esiason had kind of leaked this out a little bit early on WFAN, that this deal was potentially going to be coming. So it's a thing where it seemed like he was fishing for work, quite frankly, after he got shown the door by CBS. But one wonders the fact that he basically leaked out that this was coming, if that might work against him, if that might be negatively thought of by the folks at Netflix. But my guess is they're going to get their own crew and something that they can call Netflix Sports, even if it's like a very short-term venture every year, rather than just bring in temps from another network that carry their branding with them. What do you think, Ben?
Right, and I think we will probably see something similar to that. It's going to be interesting because I know we've talked off air about this, that most of the more well-known NFL announcers are probably not going to be moving to Netflix just because of other streaming packages with the major networks. There was a scenario we discussed, someone from Fox's B and C teams could potentially move over. We also discussed maybe some retired play-by-play people or people that currently work for Warner Brothers, especially with the potential that the NBA deal might not get renewed for Turner Sports. So,
yeah,
I'm not really truly surprised that Netflix is doing this. It makes a lot of sense to kind of have a premier event, very similar to, I believe the best analogy we can make is what HBO did for boxing, Rick, in the mid-'80s, early '90s.
Right.
Of having these premier events, but not being, all the time, creating their own specific sports department. I know HBO Sports came a little bit later, but essentially they're trying, and Netflix is trying a way to find premier events that people have to watch.
Right.
And the NFL, despite what we all say about, other sports possibly holding calendar spots, the NFL is still the NFL. And Netflix is, in my opinion, very smartly doing this because instead of taking on a package of games and having to spend an inordinate amount of money to build out their own sort of, sports department, they can have their own spotlight on themselves during Christmas Day for the next couple of seasons.
Well, it would be really kind of funny. I don't think this will happen because the gentleman I'm speaking of is far too classy to do something like this. But I always thought that it was unfair, and I got nothing against Mike Breen, and I'll always regard very fondly his call of the Cavs winning the championship in 2016. But I'm a Brad Nessler guy, and I never thought that he deserved to get taken off the NBA package. It'd be funny if Nessler went over for one day a year just to do that, just to, tweet about it afterwards, about how they quadrupled the NBA's ratings and give him a little how you like me now. I don't see him doing that, Ben, but it'd be funny as hell if he did.
I think also the issue right now that Netflix does have to ask itself is that, remember, this package is only for a 3-year deal, and there was rumors prior to this that Amazon was trying to steal those Christmas game rights away. And we'll see what Netflix does in subsequent seasons because there's going to be bidding in the next couple of seasons in terms of the package of games. I know Netflix has received the rights for this year exclusively and then 2 years of at least one game. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it works out for them. But I would assume, and I think the reason why I feel like this is a smart decision by Netflix is that they did pick the one time of year that a lot of people are at home or a lot of people are traveling or are essentially not at sports bars or not at restaurants to watch these games. So right. I think it's a very smart move for them, and considering how we've seen, at least recently, with streaming platforms where they've blown big budgets on movies or TV shows that never panned out or never went past the full season. And the worst case scenario for Netflix is that as long as they don't have any streaming issues, and again, they'll have some hiccups along the way, but I still feel like this is a smart move by them, and it will not shock me if we see similar things or similar deals with these other professional sports in America where they will do spotlight moments every year.
Very possibly. And one of the things, too, is that, again, it's always fascinating to regard the moves that one of these entities makes in the course of the greater ecosystem. And as you said, Amazon might have been fishing to get this here to augment the Thursday night games. Didn't happen. You and I have kept speculating over a course of time. Maybe Apple will come in for this thing. Maybe Apple will come in for a partial NBA package or this or that, and it still really hasn't really happened. They've basically topped off with the MSL so far, but
MLS, right?
Yeah, or MLS, yeah. I can't even remember the initials, but yeah, and that's what they've topped off at. So. Again, you wouldn't think that they could slice the pie any thinner, but potentially the NFL still could in the years to come here. And again, there are other streaming exclusive games during the season. You've got, of course, the ESPN Plus with some of the Sunday morning NFL Europe games. Peacock's going to have their exclusive game Friday night of Week 1 with the Packers and Eagles from Brazil. So you have other instances during the season, and of course all the Amazon games on Thursday nights that are streaming exclusive. So the NFL's already really gone this way, and this is one of these things where when people are talking about how much it would cost to have all the streaming services to watch everything during the year. As I pointed out to you off air last year, I got NFL Plus mostly just for Red Zone. Didn't even necessarily realize that it would be all of the standalone national games that I would get in addition to that, but I did. So, that's a far cheaper way to go. Now, again, for as much when people are saying to watch every game during the season, yeah, then it really would run into the hundreds of dollars if you want to get the actual Sunday ticket, which is being done through YouTube TV. And that's where, again, Google, being another one of these giants, they have been content to kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say settle for Sunday ticket, but as far as opposed to getting an original standalone national game or national games of their own, and it'll probably be the same thing with the NBA. It looks like they're going to be stepping in to become the distributor of the full NBA package once the new TV deal gets done. So that's what they've decided is going to be their role in the ecosystem, it seems like. But for Netflix, like you said, this whole kind of thing of they want to be involved in something premium, they want it to be exclusive, so that's a thing that Sunday Ticket and the NBA package, of course, aren't, because you're sharing that with all the local broadcasts and everything else that's going on with that. Netflix with the NFL Christmas Day, all eyes will be on that game through Netflix, and then, of course, also NFL Plus, if anybody goes that way to watch the games. But, yeah, it's really, really interesting, and again, this whole thing, that the experiment, if you will, of moving on to Christmas Day the last 2 years and really thumping the NBA by, I think, wider margins than anybody was necessarily expecting. So there was the notion that, again, could very well be, oh, hey, the TV partners that they have, they're going to get another game or whatever. But, like, the NFL being the NFL, they're like, nope, we're just going to slice it even thinner and give the games to somebody else. And evidently the TV deals that they have must allow for that.
Right, and I think there was an article earlier today in Front Office Sports as well that down the line we could see the pie grow even thinner to where we could see some more streaming exclusive games on these platforms. Because if we're being totally honest, if we kind of remove Amazon from this, and because rest of the stuff are like, let's use Paramount Plus and Peacock, right? Those are owned by networks. So this is really like the first time where a streamer, albeit the biggest one, is carrying a live package of games that normally would be shown on network television.
Yes.
So it's going to be very interesting to see. I think Amazon's been doing it forever, and it's understandable. But it's, again, I like to compare this two different ways. One way is that Amazon is trying to build like an HBO Sports or their own sort of sports package for their platform, and Netflix is dabbling more.
Yes.
In just trying to augment their existing streamer. It's almost like they're trying. The analogy would be is that Amazon is trying to be a sort of like a TV ecosystem almost.
Right.
But Netflix is trying to be more of a premium cable channel in a way.
Yes. I think that's
so it's going to be
very
interesting. And one thing, I do have to note this too, and I feel like sometimes this does get forgotten on, that this buying of this is also in the same timeline of Netflix's $6.99 ads package that, according to it, I believe at their upfronts, they have now 40 million subscribers of that just in the U.S. alone.
Okay.
And I feel like that this is one of those ways that they're going to drive people towards the ads package. And as you can probably guess too, Rick, they're bringing a lot of their own production and read that in-house at some point.
Sure.
So you're going to see a lot of situations. And I feel like, too, it's like despite all the cawing and the hooing and hollering from everyone on the internet, most people are willingly going to drop $7 if they want to watch these games.
Yeah, I think so.
They're just going to. That's just how this works. And Netflix is banking on that fact. And also, too, we tend to forget, like, even though, like, we're away from, like, the elite level prestige of Netflix, we're still within the timeline where they have a high line of very popular shows, including Black Mirror, Bridgerton, and the final season of You coming up as well. So you might see a scenario where some people, decide to keep their Netflix subscription with ads past the point of just buying these games.
Very possibly, yes.
Buying to watch these games.
Well, that's what they're hoping. They're hoping that the decision to do this is going to be a sticky one, and where you're going to check out other things, you're going to want to stick around. And ultimately, yes, none of these entities are looking to get the NFL just in a vacuum. Not even the networks that are doing the biggest deals, CBS and Fox, because they're doing it because it's such a way to promote everything else they're doing during the week. And that's how they basically figure they're getting their money back, is in terms of what it does for the rest of the network. So certainly Netflix is applying a similar thought process as they're going through here. And one of the things that's going to be interesting also, too, in terms of streaming, that something that's not really related to the Netflix deal, but it actually just came out today as we are taping this live to tape. The name of the new streaming service coming out, the joint one between Fox, ESPN, and Warner Brothers Discovery, will be Venu Sports, VENU Sports. And I have to say, in looking at the logo, it's an exceedingly generic one. So it's almost as though they were trying to not make it look like any of the three individual logos or themes or what have you. There was talk that it might be Hulu Sports that being used, because that would at least be a known commodity name using the Hulu in this, but me thinks that the Fox and Warner Brothers Discovery guys gave it the old raspberry when that got brought up, so I'm guessing why that didn't get used is that it was too ESPN/Disney oriented, and that, again, the NFL is looking into this and saying, so some of our games are going to be shown on this stuff, so the NFL, the only thing that we know for sure is the NFL is going to be coming out with their handout looking for a share of the pie for any of the NFL games getting shown on here. Even though, Ben, all it is a bundling together of entities that, again, two of the three of them anyways, Fox and ESPN, have paid for the NFL to have the games there, and you'll be watching it through their services on this joint platform. So even though it's just a different way of presenting games by entities that already bought their games, as sure as the sun will come up tomorrow, Roger Goodell will be coming and sticking his hand out and saying, we didn't agree to something like this exactly.
Right, and one thing that I thought you were actually going to go in a different direction, which is Roger Goodell, if they decide, because again, if this venture gets off the ground, and as we have discussed, there's still potential this could still implode based on the NBA rights deal coming up as well. But again, it's another opportunity and another location for a streaming exclusive game. And it would not surprise me that instead of maybe, the NFL being against doing it, they do the opposite thing, which is, well, guys, if you put this package together, we want you to pay more money to get a streaming exclusive game, now that you have to compete with these other platforms. So
okay, yeah, I could see that, and maybe something that puts together the broadcasters from a couple of the different entities involved, potentially doing the game as a way to promote it. That could be something here. And as I go to bring it all the way around here, Ben, I'm gonna go with a clip and save since we're talking about Venue here, and I'm gonna make the prediction, because it was it noted when ESPN sort of surprisingly acquired the entirety of the new college football playoff, set up the 12-team playoff, that they might perhaps be selling off some of the other games. I'm calling my shot on this one here right now. I won't be afraid to look stupid later on, but I'm here to tell you, any other ones that they sell off will be exclusively to Fox or to Warner Brothers Discovery, so it can still be on this platform. Even if Peacock comes to them with a whole bunch of money, or Paramount Plus, or any of these other ones, I'm thinking that they're going to stay within the quote-unquote family of this new streaming service, because it's a way to reinforce it right there, and to still be a part of it in some way, sort of have their, cake and eat it too, as far as making extra money from one of their partners or two of their partners, while still having it on the Venue platform. Do you agree with me that if they sell off any of the games, it'll be within Venue?
I mean, it would logically make sense, and Fox would be the most obvious rights holder there.
Yep.
But again, I don't know. I mean, the real question is that even if ESPN overspent, they have other ways of managing that level of content. And again, too, if this again comes to fruition, Rick, there is a legitimate opportunity they could paywall this as well. So
yep,
we don't know. It's a very good question.
Well, and for all the questions of what's Ernie Johnson going to do for now, because again, following up on the last streaming deal that we did here, when you and I were talking about the NBA package and the fact that it looked like Warner Brothers Discovery and Max was going to be shut out of the NBA in the next TV round here, the question of what's Ernie Johnson going to do from here on in. Hey, maybe what Ernie Johnson is going to do from here on in might be an Alabama-Georgia football game in the playoffs here if ESPN sells off one of the games to TNT or TBS. Could happen.
Yeah. And it's going to be again, we'll be doing another one after the rights deal gets officially announced. And at least based off of the rumors we all hear, we all feel like it's almost a done deal that NBC will be getting the TNT package. But we still do not know the days, the times. We still don't know how much Amazon is truly getting during the week as well. So there's still a lot to be known. It's a lot of, we thought years ago of like these streaming giants would be getting in the live sports, and we saw this really start to happen. But once we've seen like Netflix essentially, break the seal on, live sports entertainment here, it's going to be very interesting to see how all these other platforms start to move forward with their own content.
Well, also, again, and part of the reason that I think the games are going to be slotted for the times that they're slotted at on Christmas Day is that they're taking into account the worldwide audience. So this is one of these things here, too. When you're on Netflix, when you're on Amazon, you've got that kind of reach that you don't have with just your domestic partners. Because, again, and this was a factor with WWE as far as making their deal for Monday Night Raw to come over in January of 2025, is that actually all WWE programming globally is going to be on Netflix, with the exception of SmackDown and NXT domestically, which will still be on USA Network and the CW respectively. Actually, then that could work out very, very well for AEW as they're re-upping their deals, because all of a sudden in places like Britain and India and other countries like that, they've been shut out of the pro wrestling game since it's going to be exclusive to Netflix. So that's something that the NFL is looking at as well. It's a chance to go global a little bit more every time you're on one of these streamers.
Right, and again, too, we've discussed essentially the big shift in streaming was it went from all these businesses or organizations trying to create content and find and play the prestige game. But it almost feels like now all these platforms now are mainly focusing on what drives ad dollars, what drives value, and what drives people to watch things. And again, this is not a coincidence that Netflix went into the NFL after their series entitled Quarterbacks was ranked one of the top shows when it debuted. So this is not surprising. Like, the United States loves the NFL, and as we see the game grow overseas now, we're going to see a lot more people interested in the league. And I think, the one thing that I will commend Roger Goodell for doing is that it went from as the worldwide appeal of the NFL when it first started out was kind of like a sideshow. Now it's legitimately pushing more towards they're going to be having these hubs in these different countries of NFL fans.
They are, and they are growing worldwide. And again, they're behind the NBA when it comes to that. They're behind a couple of sports, but they're getting further than they used to be. And I think some of these streaming deals are going to be useful in that. Again, the streaming deals are not being done because of that. They're being done as just, quite frankly, a big old money grab, because it's a way to shake down the streaming services to give them content that legitimizes their sports division. But it's a side benefit for the NFL that it exposes them more overseas and gives a chance to put that product out there in a way that people in the other countries might not necessarily be able to get it under normal circumstances. So that was all I had on the topic. Any other thoughts on this of yours that we didn't get to, Ben?
I mean, the one thing I am intrigued to see, just speaking of the Netflix game, it's going to be very interesting once it comes down to December, what sort of the content engine looks like for Netflix, because I would make the rough assumption that would be the perfect timeline for them to debut either a new show that would fit that would have like an NFL audience be very interested in, or something along the lines of counter-programming that if you don't want to watch the NFL game on Netflix, these are your other options.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I hadn't thought of it, but that's a possibility. And if there's any way for them to snap up any kind of hot series that's got any kind of buzz, that would be the time to debut it, wouldn't it? It would be like in the period after that.
I would think so. Or along the lines, too, Rick, of like, because right now a lot of their prestige series right now aren't currently running at the moment.
Right.
Like outside of, I believe the only one that's currently running would be Bridgerton, but they are already released this. They're already releasing the season in this month and next month.
Right.
But it would give them a possible sort of lean-in timeline to be debuting a new series or a new movie that could help increase their revenue, because ultimately what's going to happen, Rick, is that the Netflix users who are already there were always going to exist no matter what.
Yeah.
But for the people who are sort of, let's say, on the fence or do not have Netflix, debuting other premier content in that same timeline could be a big boon for them as well.
Yeah. Could be. And, well, I'm going to put this out into the universe here. Hear me out on this. House of Cards prequel, the backstory of Frank Underwood. What say you?
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either. I'm not horribly optimistic.
Again, I do mean this as a serious consideration because,
yeah,
as we know, like I would make the argument, most people who have Netflix have had Netflix for a while. But I also will note there will be a certain subset of people in America and overseas too that do not have Netflix but are interested in the NFL. And if I'm Netflix, I want to keep them engaged. So this may be one of the scenarios where, very similar to how TV networks like front load their schedules and back load their schedules, I will not be surprised if during that December 2024 that Netflix decides to premiere a big movie or a big series in the same timeline.
Okay. All right, that's another clip and save. We'll see if that prediction comes to pass. I think that there's a pretty good chance that it actually would. I think there's a lot of logic behind what you're saying there. And again, I very much look forward to the chance to break this down with you, Ben, because again, I dare say there's nobody that's really been covering the permutations in the streaming business that has evolved like me and you. So thank you so much for being on for this one, buddy.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to put out a prediction right now, Rick, and we need to put this on the board.
All right.
I'm also going to make an assumption that Netflix will also be making a play for something baseball or NBA related for a game in the future, next 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that being the case. If they already did an in-season tournament in the NBA, I could see some kind of in-season type thing of some kind of note if they carve out another.
And one thing to note too, Rick, is that Netflix has also recently spent some money on doing baseball-themed sort of documentary series.
That's right.
I know they have the Red Sox thing coming up, and also they'll look back at the Expos moves. So
do
not be surprised if baseball next season tries to maybe finagle a package or a specific game to them.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit surprised that they wouldn't have been willing to outbid whatever Roku gave them for the Sunday morning games. That's kind of a little bit of a shocker there, but yeah, doesn't mean that it won't still happen, and that's one of the places I mentioned it before with MLS, with Apple TV. I guess they're still doing the Friday night MLB game, but honestly, it is easy to forget that that is the case because it doesn't tend to get a lot of promotion, the fact that it's out there right now. But as these things go on, you and I will certainly be on top of it, and like you said, we will be back to analyze the NBA package once the new TV package is made final. Again, in the previous segment we did together, I think we correctly assessed where it's probably going in terms of the broad strokes, but we will know for sure pretty soon, and we'll be back to analyze that to give you the post-mortem on what the deal is and our thoughts on it, as well as other good content here in the time ahead. Preview of the NBA Finals, as well as a recap of that, the NBA Draft, etc. Going to be some great Ben Chew coverage in the time ahead. Thank you, as always, my man. And thank you, everybody, for checking out FDH Lounge Mini Episode 1727.